Almost 5 months after the Mercaz HaRav Yeshiva massacre, Defense Minister Ehud Barak has given the order for the home of the terrorists to be destroyed, but some wonder if after waiting so long, the move will actually be effective in preventing terror.
Eventually, Defense Minister Ehud Barak decided to destroy the home of the family of the terrorist who murdered 8 yeshiva students at the Mercaz HaRav Yeshiva in Jerusalem. The idea of tearing down the homes of families of terrorists has been raised many times in the past. The main question is, does this act have any significant deterrence effect such that will prevent the next terror attack?
It's very difficult to establish a clear relationship between the demolition of houses and the diminution of terror, because we're talking about a multiplicity of factors that brings about the loss, the diminution of terrorism, and the most important is preventive arrests. The Israeli security forces every day arrests Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, and that's by far the most important factor. But it probably is a helpful factor, which is why the security systems support this move, in the sense that it doesn't prevent the actual or would-be suicide bomber, but it might alert a family member who knows that he might lose his house to enter into a deal with the security services that the brother or the son is treading the wrong path, and that the security services should invite him to summon him to an interrogation, tell him that he's under surveillance, and therefore thwart continuing along this path for the benefit of the family, for his own benefit, and of course for the benefit of Israeli society. So it has probably a positive indirect influence. It's very hard to believe that this really deters the would-be terrorist himself.
Almost on the same day Barak declared the house will be torn down, Prime Minister Olmert declared it's time for another goodwill gesture, and the premier plans to authorize the release of more terrorists from Israeli prisons. What is the real significance and meaning of these gestures?
The release of terrorists, it all depends what terrorists. I have a feeling that we all know that in recidivism and criminality, that the most important factor is age. People above 50 who are released will rarely go back to terror.
And so while one hand is ruining or planning to ruin the terrorist's home, the other hand is releasing terrorists. The Israeli government is sending a message regarding their policy in terms of the peace process. How is this policy interpreted on the other side of the negotiating table?
It's a slightly different calculus. To deter on the sole would-be suicide bomber or terrorist, and dealing with an entity or with a semi-government like the Palestinian Authority. Sometimes states have to do things that seem at odds with each other, but have their own differential calculus. And I think that in this sense, there is a different calculus, even though we know that released terrorists a high percentage of them, and a study must be made on exactly what percentage do really go back to terror, but it is probably a high percentage, and certainly that comes at a cost.